Hi everyone, my name is Terri and welcome to my channel, The Pink Dumbbell Problem, where I get to talk about my work in fitness, feminism, and philosophy. Today I'm bringing you an episode in the Discourse series. In the Discourse is a series that I created that's a little bit different than the other episodes on my channel, where I get to talk about things that are happening out there that people are discussing in social media, in pop culture, in the news, whatever. This week has been the kind of week that the ITD series was made for. So what am I talking about this week? Take a wild guess, eh? So unless you've been completely able to remove any form of media from your life, you've been totally living under a rock, great for you if you can do that, but how are you watching this? So you've probably seen by now the draft or proposal document to overturn Roe versus Wade that came from the Supreme Court of the United States and was written primarily by Justice Alito. Now, the Supreme Court, this is why there's been so much in the news in the last several years every time a new Supreme Court justice has been appointed, and particularly after the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Bader Ginsburg was the holdout for maintaining reproductive rights and choice-based rights and laws on the Supreme Court. And in the last couple of years, with some very controversial appointments, namely Kavanaugh and Connie Barrett, the Supreme Court is swinging the other way, and there's a lot of pro-life or anti-choice judges on that court now. And yes, it's fantastic that Ketanji Brown Jackson just got appointed to the Supreme Court a few weeks ago, but her vote alone, unfortunately, is not enough to keep the pro-choice laws safe. There's several dangers in overturning Roe v. Wade, and the obvious one, of course, being access to abortion. It basically set the precedent that abortion is the choice between the patient and their doctor. The reason being is your medical decisions are private. They're protected under privacy laws. So in a way, Roe v. Wade is really a privacy law. What this is going to do is it's going to open the door to revoke a whole other lot of privacy laws. In addition to all of that, several other states are putting in a whole lot of new legislation, and there's really been quite a flurry of legislation in the states in the last couple of months. And it all kind of fits around a similar theme. Anything to do with sex and gender and reproduction and hormones is kind of on the chopping block here. In the last few months, a number of states have put in regulations that restrict things like even leaving your state to go to another state to have an abortion, which is mind-blowing that they're even getting away with this. I mean, restricting somebody's mobility across the country is just unreal. But even not related to abortion issues or access to reproductive rights is things like there has been quite a few bans on trans people participating in different activities, particularly in sport. There's been a lot of talk and legislation about young people, anybody really under 18 or so, not being allowed to access gender-affirming care. And of course, there's been the Don't Say Gay, as they're sort of colloquially known, bills in a number of states. And that one is particular to education. And this, of course, is where all of this fits in with the themes of my channel. Regular viewers of this channel, you know that one of the things I study in addition to feminist philosophy and theory is agnotology, the study of ignorance. When education laws change, there's a very good chance you're seeing some agnotology happen. So the idea behind the Don't Say Gay bills is that teachers cannot say anything in school that is LGBTQ positive. They can't say anything about same-sex marriages, about, even storybooks, the one about the little gay penguins at the zoo. Those books aren't even allowed under these rules. Which, by the way, as a former school teacher, really, really, really angers me. And another thing we're seeing right now in Florida in particular, although I think it's coming up in a few other states pretty soon, is CRT being removed from curriculum and particularly from textbooks. And they're taking out, so it's not just the gay penguins they're taking out, it's anything to do with critical race theory. Because, of course, they don't want you to be critical of the things they're peddling to you. So here's where all of these things connect together. Let me make a little hub in this wheel for you. All of these things connect to who gets access, not just to services, but to information and knowledge about these services. So by putting in something like a Don't Say Gay bill, and to be clear, it's not just gay, it's anything in the LGBTQ umbrella. By doing that, they are limiting what kids growing up have access to knowledge-wise. The thinking being, if we don't tell them gay people or trans people exist, they won't become gay or trans, which of course is both ridiculous and impossible. Similarly, if you aren't allowed to travel out of your state or you aren't allowed to transition, the content presented to you in your area, in your state by medical professionals is also limited. They can't teach you about things like emergency contraception or the morning after pill. And it's also no coincidence that the ability to get gender affirming care, including hormonal treatment, is part of this as well, because they don't like when people mess with their hormones, particularly people who could become pregnant. These far-right, anti-choice, very extremely pro-natalist people want to make sure they control women and who gets to be called a woman or defined as a woman, and therefore use that as the basis for oppression. In other words, if they can keep you ignorant and barefoot and pregnant, they've got control of you. If you want to be the sort of woman who doesn't want kids, child-free, or for whatever medical or physiological reason you can't get pregnant and have a child, anybody who's born with a laundry list of endocrine conditions, gynecological conditions, and of course, any woman who's trans, they don't get to control you with pregnancy. And I know I do this a lot, but I am going to refer you back to a video I did several weeks ago at the end of March, and a little bit of talk there about how historically women in particular have been kept out of things like medical training because it kept us unaware and ignorant about how our own bodies work. And that also meant that by having women barred from medical practice and medical research, that reproductive needs and gynecological needs got way deprioritized in research. And I also want to point out another little thing that popped up in the discourse, and it's this guy. And if you've been watching American politics for the last couple of years, yeah, Matt Gaetz. It's interesting to me, I think it's very telling, that the first thing he snarks about in this tweet is that the people who are on the far left, who are very pro-choice, are quote-unquote overeducated. He doesn't want you to be educated. Nobody in his camp wants you to be educated as a woman. And he doesn't want somebody who can't get pregnant to be defined as a woman, because then who's he going to oppress? Who's he going to be sexist to? Roe versus Wade has been on the chopping block basically since it was put in place. Really, the whole anti-choice, anti-abortion side of American politics really ramped up after a few years after Roe v. Wade was put in place, and it's just been kind of unfolding ever since. It's also, of course, tied to the religious right, because they all use arguments about God said X, Y, and Z to justify what they're doing here. So one more thing on the agnotology side, aside from the fact that they want to keep people uneducated about voting, about human reproduction, about gender identity, about hormone availability, any of those things. That's just one part of deliberately keeping the population ignorant of that information. Other side is that this proposal, this draft, was leaked. Now, I've said quite a while ago, and I don't even remember which video I said it in, but non-disclosure agreements are a big part of how agnosis happens. They're often a point of agnogenesis. Agnogenesis is the moment when a bit of ignorance is deliberately sown in the discourse, in the public narrative, in law, as in a case like this. The idea that somebody intentionally leaked this before it was supposed to go, because I think the original timeline on this was sometime around the end of June or into July when they were going to go public with this draft, that somebody decided to put this out to the public for that person's safety. I hope we never know who they are. Is also really interesting. What they are doing is letting the proverbial cat out of the bag. And a lot of people over the years have said, you know, those of us who are saying that the United States wants to turn into the Republic of Gilead from Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, or, well, we're overblowing this. Well, now that this has been leaked, we see where this is going, and activism is ramping up to stand up against this, and hopefully the people in the States will find some way to legally stop this. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an American, so I don't know exactly what legal recourse they have. I hope they find something. But the idea, hopefully, is that it's bought people some more time to do more activism. The idea that they could just sneak this in with a little policy change somewhere is now the doors are blown right off that idea, because everybody knows. It's been the only thing on Twitter for several days. So if privacy rights, in particular medical privacy rights, go out the window, things like access to birth control, access to tubal ligations and vasectomies, things like that, they could also very much be on the line. This camp wants to keep people pregnant. It wants to keep people who can't afford to have children very poor because they have too many children to take care of. I could slip a Monty Python reference in there, but this is too serious, so I won't. And yeah, I don't think we're overblowing it to say that the Republic of Gilead is exactly where they want to go with this. This crowd does not watch the TV series of The Handmaid's Tale like it's fiction. They watch it like it's a how-to manual. And people who say that things from Handmaid's Tale are impossible, not at all. Because when Atwood wrote that originally in the 80s, she based all of the things that go on things that have already happened in human history. Can't speak for the TV show because that kind of went off beyond her novel and added new parts to the story. But the original novel, everything in there has happened at some point on this planet. So it's entirely possible. Those of us on the pro-choice side of things kind of want to have a little I told you so, and we told you so, but that's not ultimately the point. The point is that folks in the USA are in big trouble and that we have to support them as best we can, even from other countries, and that those of us in other countries also have to talk to our own politicians and make sure our laws are secure and our access to things like chemical birth control and abortion pills and things like that is also stable should the states outlaw and stop manufacturing those things. All right, heavy episode today and a rough one, but it was one that had to be done. I thank you so much for watching. Please click down below. I've got some other videos down there. And as always, lift heavy, fight the patriarchy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.